if you've ever felt completely helpless because someone you care deeply about is struggling, like maybe they're on the other side of the country, you know that immediate instinct is to reach for technology.
Oh, absolutely. You just grab your phone.
Right. You grab the phone, you open a messaging app, you connect to Wi-Fi. It's a highly mechanical reflex, You hit a button, a digital signal beams up to some satellite in low Earth orbit, and bam, a fraction of a second later, you're connected.
Yeah, we really lean heavily on that visible, engineered infrastructure. I mean, those external grids carry our voices, our images across thousands of miles. They bridge that physical gap with data.
But what if you step outside of that digital landscape? Today, we are looking at a wildly different way you might bridge that gap. We're stepping into the world of alternative energy practices, specifically distance healing.
Which is fascinating because suddenly you aren't looking for a cell tower.
Exactly. You're looking for a completely different kind of signal. And the primary instrument isn't a silicon microchip. It's a piece of the Earth itself.
It requires a profound shift in perspective. You are trading the electronic for the energetic, and you're swapping the rigidly engineered for the deeply intuitive.
We are jumping right into a text today called Radiant Resonance. It's a guide to distance healing with crystal wands. And the mission for our deep dive today is to really demystify the mechanics.
Right, the mechanics, the specific mindsets.
Yeah, and the strict protocols required to actually send healing energy across those vast distances. We're acting as your guide through this text.
And I think it's crucial to establish right up front how this source material actually treats its subject.
Wow.
Because the crystal wand is not presented as some sort of magic stick from a fantasy novel.
Well, you don't just wave it and cure a cold.
Exactly. The text frames the wand as a highly directed instrument of intention. It is a structural focal point for a very specific discipline type of energetic work.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before you can send energy anywhere, you have to acquire the right tool. And reading through the opening chapters on how to actually choose a crystal wand, I found myself getting tripped up by what felt like a pretty massive contradiction.
Oh, the tension between the analytical mind and the intuitive process? That is a really common hurdle for beginners in this space.
Yeah, because the author starts with some standard logical advice, right? They mention that clear quartz is the ultimate baseline material.
Because it naturally amplifies energy.
Right, and it aids any chakra. Which, for those of you who might not be familiar with the term, refers to the various energetic centers running down the human body.
Precisely.
The author also notes you don't need a massive, expensive, elaborate wand. A simple 2-inch natural quartz point does the job perfectly. But then, and this is where I got stuck, the guide suddenly pivots. It gets very firm about prioritizing intuition over logic.
Yes, the text heavily emphasizes that the selection of your tool must be driven by an internal pull, not by, checking boxes on a metaphysical shopping list.
And that is exactly where my brain hit a wall. The source explicitly encourages trusting your gut, even if it directly contradicts an expert or a book. But, we are literally reading a guidebook.
It does seem paradoxical at first.
Totally. The text claims that crystals will sometimes talk to you. They essentially say, hey, use me. It even refers to them as our little earthly assistants.
Mm-hmm.
And the author argues that logical thinking only sees the surface layer of an issue and completely misses the root. But if I am a novice practitioner relying on this book to learn, how am I supposed to just, abandon my logic?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the text validates the practitioner's subconscious pull. Because energy work, as defined by radiant resonance, does not operate on a purely intellectual plane.
So the spreadsheet approach doesn't work.
Right. If you walk into a shop with a rigid spreadsheet of what you think you need based on textbook definitions, you are entirely in your analytical brain. You're actually blocking the subtle energetic frequencies the practice relies on. The author mentions that an odd, unexpected choice might just have I think the phrase is a little extra something to get the job done.
Something. Which, let's be honest, is an incredibly vague metric for a guidebook.
It sounds vague until you experience it. That phrase really represents personal resonance.
Okay.
If you are going to act as a director of energy, you cannot hold an instrument that you feel disconnected from. Regardless of what the reference manual dictates, that subconscious alignment is the foundational bridge you need to move energy effectively later on.
Hearing you frame it as a subconscious bridge, it actually reminds me of adopting a pet from an animal shelter.
Ooh. How do you mean?
Well, you might walk into the shelter being highly logical, like you've read all the breed guides, you live in a small apartment.
You need a small dog.
Right, your spreadsheet dictates you need a low-energy, small breed dog, preferably older. You are entirely in your analytical brain.
But the shelter environment rarely conforms to our spreadsheets.
Exactly. You walk past the cages and suddenly you lock eyes with this scruffy, medium-sized, ridiculous-looking terrier mix who is just staring at you.
And there's that connection.
Yeah, it makes zero logical sense based on your apartment criteria, but there's an immediate, undeniable subconscious connection. You just know that is your dog. The logic goes out the window because the resonance is there.
I love that. That captures the dynamic perfectly. You need that immediate trust. The wand must feel like an extension of your own intention, not a foreign object you are forcing into compliance.
Okay, so let's say you found your wand. You trusted your gut, you felt the resonance. Now we have to look at the physical architecture of the crystal and figure out the actual mechanics. Like, where is this healing energy actually coming from?
That is the pivotal question. Because the energy doesn't just spontaneously generate from nothing, and the physical shape of the crystal is definitely not arbitrary.
The text points out that shape matters immensely. Crystals naturally grow from their base upward, which means their internal structure naturally channels energy up to their tips.
Right, the energy flows up.
And practitioners are instructed to always use them in this natural direction. But here's where it gets really interesting. The most crucial rule in this entire guide is about the origin source of the power. The practitioner does not use their own energy.
No, they don't. And this represents the most profound paradigm shift in the entire practice of distance healing, as outlined in the text.
It completely shattered how I pictured this working. I was imagining the practitioner as, like, a human battery. I pictured someone sitting in a dark room, squeezing out their own life force and projecting it across the world to their sick friend.
Doing that would be incredibly dangerous to the practitioner's physical and emotional health.
The text expressly forbids it. Instead, the guide states they must draw upon universal healing energies, which the text interchangeably refers to as source. But I struggled to visualize what source actually means in a practical sense.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, think of source as the ambient, infinite energetic field that surrounds everything.
Like a reservoir.
Exactly, a limitless reservoir. If you use your own energy, your own life force, to heal someone else, you are literally draining your own reserves. You will inevitably experience severe empathetic fatigue and energetic burnout.
Oh man, I see. So the crystal wand is essentially a garden hose with a highly specialized nozzle. But the practitioner...
You aren't the water.
Right. You aren't the water. You are just the person holding the hose and turning the spigot to let that massive universal reservoir flow through the system. And the crystal gem then intensifies and boosts that water pressure, directing it where it needs to go.
That is such a vital distinction. By acting as a conduit, the person holding the hose, as you said, rather than the battery supplying the power, you ensure the healing process is sustainable.
It's a protective mechanism.
A profound protective mechanism. You are facilitating the healing, but you aren't sacrificing yourself to achieve it.
Sustainable empathy. I absolutely love that concept. And understanding that strict one-way directional flow of universal energy naturally sets the stage for the exact step-by-step physical ritual of running a session.
Right. The energy goes from the ambient source, through you, through the base of the wand, and out the focus tip.
Exactly. And this is where the intuitive preparation we discussed earlier meets highly structured, deliberate action. Because the text provides incredibly specific instructions.
It does. It's very protocol-driven from here on out.
First is the preparation phase. You have to physically and energetically cleanse the wand. The author suggests smudging with sage smoke, using sound vibrations like a singing bowl or, whatever method you prefer.
Getting it to a neutral state.
Yeah. Then you find a quiet space, sit down, and hold the wand in your dominant hand.
And that choice of the dominant hand is not random at all. In energetic practices, the body has a distinct polarity. The dominant hand acts as the active projecting channel, while the non-dominant hand is receptive.
That makes a lot of sense. So once you are holding it, you enter the connection phase. You close your eyes, and you visualize the person you are sending healing to.
Building the bridge.
The guide suggests imagining a literal beam of light connecting you to them across the distance. And if visualization is difficult, it notes you can use physical anchors, like a photograph or a piece of their clothing, to help establish focus.
You are essentially dialing the phone number. You're establishing the precise coordinates for where this amplified universal energy needs to travel.
Once those coordinates are locked in, you move to the action. You direct the energy from your heart center down through your arm and into the wand. And the text introduces a very specific physical movement here.
The clockwise motion.
Yes, you must move the wand in a clockwise direction, as if you are drawing a continuous circle in the air. The author states this clockwise motion creates a vortex that amplifies the energy being sent.
And it is worth noting that this protocol is pretty versatile. The guide explicitly mentions that if you feel energetic blockages in your own body, like maybe a tightness in your chest or a tension headache, you can hover the wand over yourself and run this exact same clockwise amplification protocol.
Oh, wow. So it's not just for distance. But back to the distance session. It doesn't just end when you decide you are done sending energy. The subsequent steps are arguably more intense than the act of healing itself.
Oh, the disconnect phase is critical.
This part really threw me. You don't just put the wand down and walk away to make a sandwich. You have to formally, consciously release the connection.
It's a strict boundary.
Yeah. You do this by thanking the person out loud or in your mind, and then the text mandates that you mentally cut the energy cord.
Which reinforces the boundary we discussed earlier regarding the source energy. If you leave that line open, you blur the lines between the universal energy field, the recipient's energy field, and your own.
Right.
It is the energetic equivalent of leaving your front door wide open during a hurricane.
And to fully seal that door, there is a final grounding step. After you cut the cord, you switch the wand from your dominant hand to your non-dominant hand. Then you visualize any excess lingering energy flowing out of your body, down through your feet, and back into the earth. Finally, you cleanse the wand again. But I have to admit, I got totally lost on the hand switching part.
Really?
Yeah. Why switch to the non-dominant hand at all? I mean, I'm already holding the wand. It just seemed to me like an unnecessary step that breaks concentration.
Well, remember the polarity of the body we established earlier. You project with the dominant hand. If you simply lower your dominant hand while still holding the wand, the circuit remains open in a projective state.
Oh, wait, I see. Okay, it's like a walkie-talkie.
Go on.
Okay, so when you are holding the wand in your dominant hand, it is exactly like holding down the button on the side of a walkie-talkie to transmit. You are actively pushing the signal out.
Right.
But when the transmission is over, you have to release that button. Switching the wand to your non-dominant hand is releasing the transmit button. Because that hand is receptive, it acts as a ground wire, letting you discharge any leftover static safely into the earth.
Yes, instead of holding on to it in your own nervous system. That is a highly functional way to visualize the circuitry at play.
It makes the abstract feel really tangible.
The strictness of this ritual, from the sage smoke to the clockwise vortex, the cord cutting, and finally that walkie-talkie grounding, it creates a very safe, contained environment.
Without these rigid boundaries, distance healing could be an incredibly overwhelming psychological and energetic burden.
Because it requires intense, active focus. You are sitting there, eyes closed, actively managing this flow of universal energy.
It takes effort.
But reading further into the sources, a practical problem emerged for me. What if you want to provide support to someone who is going through a long-term crisis?
Like a chronic illness.
Exactly.
Right.
Or navigating a brutal divorce, and you want to support them around the clock. You obviously can't sit in a chair holding a crystal wand in your dominant hand 24 hours a day.
The physical limitations of the practitioner are very real. Which brings us to a fascinating workaround introduced in the final section of our text, the distance healing crystal stone grid. This part completely blows my mind. The text introduces this grid as a way to create a passive system for sending support.
It's brilliant.
You can lay names or photos under the center stone of this grid, and it will continue to broadcast those healing energies long after you have stepped away to go to sleep or go to work.
It evolves the practice from an active temporary meditation into a permanent, ongoing environmental support system. You are basically delegating the energetic labor.
But the setup for this grid is wild. The source provided a link to a diagram, and it is not just a pile of pretty rocks. It is a highly specific 9-layer geometric pattern. Let me just read you this list, because the complexity is staggering compared to the simple quartz wand.
The architecture is quite intricate, yes.
Okay, so the center stone must be ocean jasper. Around that, an inner petal shape made of Herkimer diamonds. Then a star shape constructed from shungite. Outside of that, a triangle of quantum quattrosilica. Then an open circle of bluestone. Next, a dot layer of rutilated quartz. A square of rose quartz, an outside circle of selenite combined with amethyst scepters, And finally, outside flanking stones made of ruby.
Every single mineral listed there serves a distinct operational purpose within the geometry.
So what does this all mean? Because in section 1, we were told, hey, just trust your gut, use whatever simple little quartz point talks to you, ignore the rule books.
Right.
But now we are looking at a hyper-specific blueprint that requires 9 exact types of esoteric stones. I mean, quantum quattrosilica, I had to look that up. It's a rare blend of 4 different minerals found only in Namibia.
It's very specific.
It feels like a massive contradictory shift from pure intuition to a rigid scientific formula.
It does appear contradictory at first glance, but consider the synthesis of these 2 different tools. We established that the single crystal wand requires your immediate conscious active direction.
Yeah.
Think of the wand as a laser pointer of energy.
Okay, a laser pointer requires a human hand to aim it.
Precisely. The grid, however, operates autonomously. If the wand is a laser pointer, the 9-stone grid is a broadcasting tower. To build a tower that runs 24/7 without your active consciousness driving it, you need specific structural engineering.
Oh, wow. So the stones act like physical circuitry.
Oh, exactly. Let's look at the layers you mentioned. The ocean jasper sits in the center because it acts as the anchor for emotional stability. The Herkimer diamonds surrounding it are supreme amplifiers, taking the intention placed under the jasper and boosting its signal.
And the shungite. I know that's a very ancient carbon-based stone.
Shungite is incredibly grounding. It acts as a protective shielding for the grid. Then you have the quantum quattrosilica you mentioned from Namibia. That specific blend is renowned in alternative practices for deep trauma release.
So it's targeting specific types of healing.
Right. And the rutilated quartz contains tiny needle-like inclusions inside the stone, literally acting as microscopic antennas to broadcast the signal outward.
That is wild. The physical structure of the stone mirrors its energetic function.
Yes. The rose quartz ensures the transmission is colored with compassion. The selenite ring provides continuous self-clearing so the grid doesn't stagnate, while the amethyst scepters provide directional authority.
And the rubies.
Finally, the flanking rubies act as the energetic boundary walls. They ensure the signal remains contained and directed. The incredible specificity is required because the geometry and the mineral properties have to carry the weight of the intention entirely on their own.
That completely explains the bizarre maintenance warning the author included in the text. They state you should set this grid up on an altar or in a totally undisturbed space, but they sternly warn that you must physically smudge or cleanse these stones regularly, like at least once a month, if not weekly. The quote that genuinely made me laugh was the author noting that these stones will be doing fairly hard duty as far as rock duty goes.
Hard rock duty. It's a rather charming way to describe energetic processing.
It really is, because we usually think of rocks as the ultimate definition of inert objects. They just sit in the dirt. But this text treats the geometric grid like a heavy-duty air purifier running 24/7 in a smoky room.
That's a great analogy.
It is constantly processing dense, difficult energy on behalf of your sick friend, which means its energetic filter literally gets gunked up. It needs to be taken out and cleaned on a weekly basis.
The continuous passive signal requires active physical maintenance. You have delegated the daily energetic labor to the grid circuitry, but you remain absolutely responsible for the upkeep of the system.
It is a fascinating, tightly woven ecosystem of intention and responsibility. So let's bring this all together for you, our listener, because we have covered a massive amount of ground today through the pages of Radiant Resonance.
We really have.
We started with the seemingly simple yet deeply challenging act of picking a crystal point. Learning to quiet the analytical brain, trust your gut, and listen for that subconscious resonance, even if the reference books tell you otherwise.
And from there, we explored the crucial energetic mechanics, the natural base-to-tip flow of the crystal, and the absolute necessity of acting merely as a conduit for universal source energy, rather than dangerously depleting your own internal battery.
We then walked through the strict physical protocols designed to keep that energetic flow safe and contained. You know, the clockwise vortex for amplification, the walkie-talkie style hand switching to ground yourself, and the vital importance of mentally cutting the cord when the session concludes so you don't burn out.
A vital step.
And finally, we looked at how to build an autonomous, energetic broadcasting tower, that intricate 9-stone geometric grid that does the hard rock duty of sending passive, around-the-clock support.
Whether you approach this material as a dedicated, practicing believer or as a highly curious skeptic, the framework presented in this guide is an extraordinary study.
It really is.
It is a masterclass in structured empathy. It takes the deeply abstract, often overwhelming concept of caring for someone who is far away and gives it physical weight, geometric structure, and precise protective boundaries.
It really does. It takes the invisible weight of worry and makes it feel incredibly tangible and actionable.
And examining this highly structured approach to empathy, well, this raises an important question for all of us to consider, regardless of our beliefs about crystals.
What's that?
If effective distance healing absolutely relies on the practitioner acting merely as a conduit for universal energy, rather than sacrificing their own reserves, how might we apply this conduit mindset to our everyday emotional lives?
Oh, that is a deep pivot.
Think about the mechanics we discussed. When a friend calls you in a state of crisis, or a family member is struggling miles away, our immediate human instinct is often to drain our own emotional batteries to light them up.
We take on their pain.
Exactly. We absorb it. But what if we visualize ourselves not as the generator of their comfort, but merely as a clear, supportive channel for it?
Wow.
How much empathetic fatigue and emotional burnout could we avoid if we learned to support our distant loved ones with deep intention, while remembering to mentally cut the cord and ground ourselves afterward?
That is something to truly mull over the next time your phone rings with bad news. Because at the end of the day, whether you are holding a 2-inch piece of natural quartz or a piece of glass and metal called a smartphone, you are still just trying to bridge the gap.
You're trying to connect.
You are still just reaching out across the dark, hoping your signal finds the person who needs it most.
Very well said.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of intention. Keep your signals clear, protect your own battery, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.